What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for November 23rd, 2023. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I'm very thankful that you're choosing to spend your Thanksgiving, or at least part of it, with me. If you're driving to grandma's house, I'm going to keep it clean for you today if the kids are in the car. Hi, kids. But in all seriousness, I wish you guys a blessed and restful, enjoyable, relaxing Thanksgiving. Get some football, eat some turkey, hang out with some family, and enjoy. All right, a couple quick housekeeping notes before we move into today's lesson. Wanted to apologize yesterday if you're watching on YouTube. The dog literally busted through the door near the end of the podcast. That's why you saw the door open and no one walk in. I guess he just wanted to be a part of the podcast yesterday. I did go over some things, and I was a little distracted because of the dog. But for December, we are going to be doing a Philly Sports Advent Calendar. Each day, we're going to open up the door and see what that brings. I'm going to try something new. It's something we do with the kids. We've done for a couple years now, and I want to kind of expand it and try to get you guys involved and give back. I am going to let you in on our reverse Advent Calendar, where each day it's a different thing we put in the bag, and then right around Christmas Eve we'll go and donate it to a local food bank, charity, whatever's in your area. No need. I had a couple people reach out and ask, and no need to come deliver it to mine. Just say, hey, this is what we're going to do. But I figured we'll get to this day in Philly sports history, first annual reverse Advent Calendar food drive, or something cool name like that, but just something to give back, just help out, because you see it all the time, especially like leading up this week to Thanksgiving. So many people are struggling, and the food banks are low on food. So non-perishable stuff we'll throw in a bag, and you guys can participate. I'll post the actual list on social media if you wanted to do it early, but it's just a good way to get the kids involved. We took some books to the library yesterday, and my son thought it was the coolest thing that he was giving his old books to somebody else who might need them more than him. So just trying to instill those values. So hopefully we can really make I know there's a ton of need, so we won't make a big dent, but hopefully we can just chip away at a little bit of the deficits that some of the food banks are running with. So more on that as we get closer to December, but I wanted to make sure, put it on your radar, that's something I'm going to do as well. Not sports related, but figure use the platform I have to try to help others in need. It's something we do anyway here, and just if it's something that you feel like you can do, by all means, let's go help out whoever we can as we get into the month of December and deep into the holiday season. No new Back to the Future this week because of the Thanksgiving holiday. It's a good week to catch up on the archives. Kind of going through. We have a ton of archives. I needed some space on my OneDrive, so I'm kind of transferring some things onto some flash drives, and just the sheer amount of episodes and videos and recordings I have. So great week to kind of get caught up and get back into the flow with that. We will resume with new episodes next week. Question of the day recap. Surprisingly, maybe not surprisingly, by like 2-1, I think like 66.6% of you all thought that the Eagles' best is yet to come, and I tend to believe that too. I know some people are like, they just are who they are. This is what they do. But to me, they have not put a complete game together. Now, maybe they can't. Who knows? But I tend to agree with those that kind of thought that, yeah, this is where we're kind of going. So thank you for everyone who voted and got back into that. So continue to do so. We will have a question of the day later on, a Thanksgiving edition. But 2-1, you guys thought that the Eagles are still going to put their best game together. So let's hope. Hopefully it comes this week in the Kelly Green game against Buffalo, because I'm going to be there selfishly, and two, just it's time. All right, so it is Thanksgiving, and one thing and I know it's weird, and I kind of questioned this, but I looked into it, and there is a football game tomorrow, a Black Friday edition. I think it's the Jets and Dolphins. Should be a real exhilarating one there. But the reason why it starts at 3, and I couldn't believe this until I looked it up, and there's legitimately a law that the NFL cannot play on Friday and Saturday nights when it will interfere with high school or college football. So I know this is kind of the end of both of those seasons, so that's why they're starting it at 3, so it can be done as to not interfere. Playoffs obviously are an exception because typically they'll come after college and high school football is over. They could do a Friday night, but only people within 75 miles of the game would be able to receive the broadcast. So that would essentially be, like, if it was an Eagles game, it would essentially be Philadelphia and basically Chester, Bucks, Montgomery, and Delaware counties. Maybe some of Berks, but just an interesting thing that was the law that they had. So thought I'd share that with you. All right, Eagles news. And the big story was, we mentioned it yesterday. I started talking about it, but everybody seemed to really be running with it, and maybe they're listening. If you are listening, hook me up. Like I said, I can come on every day, do a guest spot this day in Philly sports history, whether it's 94, 97.5, Channel 10, Channel 6, Channel 3. I'm not picky. KYW News Radio, get me on. Like, let's go. Like, obviously, we were talking about Sirianni and just the way everybody else thinks he's a jerk, but if we love him. So every I listened to a little bit of Marks and Reese yesterday. I listened to a little bit of Hugh and Joe, and they all were talking about it. And I guess what prompted this was the story about him saying, "Shut up, treat fans," and this, that, and the other. I don't know. I don't care. Like, I really don't. I like it. It's kind of fiery, and the big thing was like, well, it's easy to do when you're winning. And, well, yeah, he's winning. But I would wonder if he would do this when he wasn't winning. So much so that maybe this is the kind of thing that this team needs, and maybe he's a good coach. And it's too early to tell because he's had so much success. But, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, talk all the trash you want. Like I said, I'm going to keep it clean. But talk all the trash you want and just be you. I feel like that's who he is. And that's what you want as a coach, and it's working. So, listen, if they were 500 right now and he's doing that stuff, then I might say something. But you know what, Nick? You go be you. All right, PhillyGoat.com. With all the excitement of the Mega John and then us helping to inspire the Philadelphia Quakers hockey sweatshirt, which is awesome, by the way. Missed in all of that was they have ugly Christmas sweaters. They have the Fanatic with "No One Likes Us, We Don't Care," which I don't know which one I want to get. And then there's the one, it's like the leg lamp from A Christmas Story, but it's an Kelly Green Eagles football player leg. I don't know which one to get, but I will be getting one, and you should too. Just add it into your cart when you're doing your Christmas shopping. But in all seriousness, go to PhillyGoat.com, use the promo code Jim Montgomery, get your ugly sweatshirt or ugly sweatshirt. I think they're a sweatshirt. You know what? I should have probably checked that out. I don't know if they're real sweaters or sweatshirts, but either way, they look like the ugly sweaters, and they're phenomenal. So go check them out. Get a Quaker shirt, get your Fanatic shirt, Mega John, whatever you need. Go to Philly Goat, Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. You're going to be shopping. You don't have to go to the mall. Go right on your computer, Philly Goat, blah, 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 blah. You can do it at halftime of one of the games today. Christmas shopping, done. Jim Montgomery, 10% off at Philly Goat. Another thing for the Eagles, too, and I missed this. They were talking about Shaquille Leonard, whether or not the Eagles should make a run at him, and quite frankly, yes. Why not? I think he instantly adds some depth and makes our linebacking core better. So why would you not try? And I think they were trying to get a linebacker anyway. By all means, I'm all in on Shaquille Leonard. Go do the deal, Howie. Maybe he'll give us a Black Friday gift as well. All right, Sixers without Joe lost 112-99 out in Minnesota last night. Just a tough one coming off the back-to-back. They've now lost 2 in a row. The size of Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert was just too much for them. The T-Wolves are a good team, too, so no shame in that. it's kind of just, I mean, what are you going to do? And there was a story, Keith Pompey of the Inquirer was talking about how the scouting report might be out on the Sixers, where Joe might not be in the best shape. And I don't know. I think it's early, but I think you're kind of seeing the deficiencies of this team. When they're good, we know what they're doing well, but I think the deficiencies are starting to show, which will help when it comes time now and they can start evaluating who's available, who's not, and try to use the assets they have for this year. Because I still think when they're on, they could be one of the top teams in the East. So it's definitely worth looking into improving the team. Flyers lost a tight one up in Long Island last night, 3-2 to the Islanders, ending their 5-game win streak. They're back in action tomorrow against the Rangers down at the Wells Fargo Center. And then they take on the Islanders again up in New York, which is a weird kind of New York, Philly, New York trip for the Flyers. But looking to get back on track, still one of the top teams, an exciting team. I told you, go get your stuff. Jump on the bandwagon now. All right, today we're going to go back to 1954. And on this day, 1954, a formal announcement was made, essentially forming the Big Five in Philadelphia for basketball. They would start playing the Big Five slate in 1955. And ultimately, the goal was to showcase what Philly basketball was at the time, because at the time, believe it or not, college basketball in Philadelphia was some of the best in the country, if not the best. So it was a way to really showcase the best that Philly had to offer for basketball and help Penn with the upkeep of the Palestra, which at the time, right now, it's more of like a nostalgic thing, but at the time, it was the state of the art, like it was the basketball mecca at the time for college, because the NBA was still in its infancy then. So college was king, and Philly college hoops were number one at the time. It originally was LaSalle, Temple, Penn, St. Joe's, and Villanova. If you're anything like me, you always wondered why Drexel was never in. And first of all, originally they weren't in because they were a Division II team up until 1974. And then there was always talks here and there. And sometimes the Big Five is very, they can't get out of their own way with like the tradition and things like that. But today, all 6 of them are in. Excuse me. It's the Big Five, but there's 6 teams. But in any college sport now, conferences, none of it makes sense. There's like 18 teams in the Big Ten. But all 6 of them play. The first Saturday of December is the Big Five Classic. And what they do is basically the 6 teams are in 2 separate pods. They play a round robin leading up to it, and then there's a first place game, third place, and then a fifth place game. There is a lot of tradition with the Big Five. I will give it that. But the conference play and like the way things were in the late 80s, early 90s, where sort of it was all about the conference, kind of took some of that luster off, and it started with Villanova kind of going into the Big East. I will say when I was going to school and really into college basketball and religiously followed Temple, it was kind of different because Temple, St. Joe's, and LaSalle were all in the A-10. So that rivalry kind of meant something. Nova was sort of, as they were getting better, it was always Temple and Nova, so that was always sort of the measuring stick game. And then Penn, for whatever reason, was always good with Dunphy. So it was... I didn't mind it per se. I do think a lot of the old school guys really hang on to that tradition. But it's a different time, and I'm anxious to see what happens next weekend for the Big Five Classic this year. If you're keeping score at home, Nova has the most Big Five titles with 29, 17 of them outright. Temple has 28, 6 outright. St. Joe's 29. Penn 14, 6 outright, and LaSalle 11 with 4 outright. So far this year, Pod 1, next Wednesday, Temple and LaSalle play essentially for a spot in the Big Five championship for that first place game. The winner of that will play the winner from Pod 2, which ultimately will be the winner of the St. Joe's Nova game. So I feel like in that respect, this year, the first year, like there are some like meaningful games. Like the Temple Drexel game was actually a solid game where like it was close and like Temple held them off at the end. So maybe this new format will reignite some of the love for Philly college hoops. I don't know, but for me, it is kind of one of those things. It's just I totally feel it's one of the most overrated things in Philly sports because it meant way more in the 50s, 60s, and even into the 70s than what it did in the 80s, 90s when I was watching college basketball. But I'm not going to take anything away from the guys that love it, and I'm actually excited. If I can get tickets, I wouldn't mind going down to the Palestra and watching the. I think it's at the Palestra. I can't imagine it wouldn't be at the Palestra, but watching the Big Five Classic, it might be at the Wells Fargo now that I'm thinking about it. I'll look into that and let you know. But either way, I would not mind watching it. It's more of, like, it was way different when the Big Five was originally formed, but we'll see. But on this day in 1954, the Big Five was officially formed. They started playing in the 1955-56 season. They continue today. They have since added Drexel. It's more of a City Six now than the Big Five. But we'll see how next week goes with those games and then how the actual tournament and everything sort of shakes out. All right, again, if you're going to Philly Goat, you might as well do the rest of your shopping. Go to Car Can. Get a Car Can for the back of your truck, car, whatever. My bags came yesterday to fit in. It was awesome. Like, the kids were throwing more trash in. Like, I don't even have to clean out the back of my truck now. They've done it for me. It's a great gift for people in the office. If you are an Uber or Lyft driver, I can't stress this enough. It's a perfect thing to just have in your car. They have all kinds of other car organizational items too, so go check them out. If I keep saying, if I had a trunk instead of like having a truck, the box and what they put in there for your trunk is awesome. So go check that out. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery 20 off for 20% off your order. That's carcan.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery 20 off for 20% off of your order. All right. Time for today's Philly sports most disappointing athlete. Quite honestly, could be the most disappointing athlete in the history of Philadelphia, and that is one Ben Simmons, drafted number 1 overall in 2016. And honestly, I don't even know where to begin with Ben Simmons. He sat out his first year because of injury. And then was the rookie of the year his first year, and then it kind of just started going downhill from there. He was 3-time All-Star. He was excellent on defense, 2-time All-Defensive First Team. However, in my opinion, he is the reason the Sixers did not win a championship throughout the process. I think had he not been mentally soft, and again, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not taking anything away from mental health. I think it's people need to get their mental situation checked, but I just feel he used it as an excuse, like a last option. And like that just rubs me the wrong way because there are legitimately people out there that have mental issues that really need to get their stuff together. I've gone through some things myself. Like it's a real thing, but to use that as a last resort when nothing else seemed to work, it just was. And maybe he did legitimately. And again, I don't want to say that, but it just really rubbed me the wrong way that he used that as a last sort of ditch thing to get out of Philly. But enough about that. I feel he cost the Sixers a championship because and you can throw Brett Brown in there as well, but they cost them signing Jimmy Butler. If they'd have signed Jimmy Butler, that was the one guy that, I mean, Tyrese is one, like Jimmy Butler was the guy that I think played the best with Joe. And because of stinking Ben Simmons, we didn't re-sign Jimmy Butler, and they went a whole different way with everything. But obviously he got traded to the Nets for James Harden, who ultimately probably could have made this list too, but I've talked way too much about James Harden over the past 3 months. I don't want to talk about him anymore. But he's pulling the same stuff now up in the Nets, or up in Brooklyn with the Nets. So he's just he's a bust. I think it's fair to say he's a bust. And it's hard to say that about a guy that made 3 All-Star games, but the shooting, man, like, raise your hand if you fell for his off-season shooting videos every year. Even though looking at them now, I swear it was the same loop of clips that they showed. Every year I fell for it. Every year I was like, okay, this is the year Ben Simmons learned how to shoot. And just like Lucy with the football, took it away from me every time. So, and then he literally hid in that Atlanta series. Hid. Like, literally hid. Like, it just, And even that year, they could have, like, that was a good year. And, like, his play cost them that game, or that series. So, I mean, it's Thanksgiving. I want to stay positive, so I'm going to end the Ben Simmons conversation here. Obviously, you know how I feel. F that guy. He cost the Sixers a championship, and we'd be looking at the process a lot differently had Ben Simmons not been who he was. But that's today's Philly sports most disappointing athlete, one Ben Simmons. Also, it is Thursday, even though it's Thanksgiving. Be sure to check out my boys over at the Clashing Conferences podcast. New episode dropped last night. Really want to see what I'm sure they're going to pile on Greg again, but here we are, 9-1, and it's still the same old, same old. So be sure to check them out wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. On this day back in 1954, the Big Five was officially formed to showcase the talent and the basketball in Philadelphia, as well as help Penn with the upkeep of the Palestra. Now it's still the Big Five, but there's 6 teams, and they play kind of a round-robin tournament, and now they are playing for the Big Five Classic the first Saturday in December. So here's your question of the day. Is the Big Five overrated? Just give me your thoughts on the Big Five. Am I wrong? Like, am I missing the point here with the Big Five? Is it something that's good for the college basketball landscape? Let me know here on the Thanksgiving. Bring it up with your dad and uncles at Thanksgiving dinner today. Ask them what they feel about the Big Five, and then let me know. If you want, play on the pod and let them know how I feel about it. But have fun with that. But be sure on social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter, as well as TikTok, Instagram at Philly Jimbo. Let me know your thoughts on the Big Five. Be sure to do some holiday shopping today and tomorrow. PhillyGoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery 10% for 10% off of your order. That really helps the podcast out. It helps us continue to grow and do fun things like the Advent calendar, as well as the reverse Advent calendar. Same way with Car Can. It's a great gift for the office. But for Philly Goat, get one of those ugly Christmas sweaters. They are amazing. Looks like it's going to be a beautiful day. So everyone, have a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy your time with family and friends. Be safe out there. Be sure to tell whoever you're thankful for that you are thankful for them. Enjoy the day of football. We will be back tomorrow. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.